The darkness of space held no mercy for the dying ship that drifted between the stars. The luminous dawn had once been beautiful, its crystal hull gleaming with inner light as it carried the pride of the Veldari Collective on their most important research mission. Now the ship was nothing more than a broken shell, its lights flickering weakly as power failed system by system. Captain Veltar stood on the bridge, his tall blue form rigid with barely controlled anger. The Veldari were known throughout the galaxy as masters of energy manipulation. Their ships ran on exotic matter that could bend space and time. Their weapons could tear holes in reality itself. They looked down on other species as primitive children playing with simple tools. But none of that power meant anything now. "Status report," Veltar said, his voice tight with frustration. Science Officer Keelina looked up from her console, her usually bright eyes dim with exhaustion. "The artifact completely drained our exotic matter core. All primary systems are offline. We're running on emergency power only." Veltar closed his eyes. 3 days ago they had discovered something incredible. In this dead region of space, an ancient structure, older than any known civilization, floating in the void like a dark jewel. The science team had been excited beyond measure. First contact with a truly alien intelligence, technology that could teach them secrets about the universe itself. They had been so very wrong. The moment their ship had gotten close to the artifact, everything had gone dark. The structure had somehow reached out and drained their exotic matter core in seconds, leaving them powerless and dying. Worse, it continued to pulse with dark energy, making it impossible for their systems to restart. "How many did we lose?" Veltar asked quietly. 4 in the initial power failure," Keelina replied. "Engineer Murdoch was able to save 8 others, but we lost them when the life support failed in Section 3. 12 survivors. Out of a crew of 24, only 12 remained alive on a ship that was slowly dying around them. And the distress signal? Broadcasting on all frequencies for 3 standard days," Communications Officer Rulven reported. No response from any vessel. Veltar was not surprised. The Veldari had made many enemies over the centuries. Their attitude of superiority had earned them the hatred of most other advanced species. The hegemony despised them for refusing to share their energy technology. The synthesis viewed them as arrogant fools who had grown too proud. The Eternal Court simply ignored them, as beneath notice. More importantly, this region of space was known as the Dead Zone. Ships that entered here often disappeared. The energy-draining effects of the artifact made it dangerous for any vessel that relied on exotic matter drives. Most civilizations had marked this area as forbidden. "Sir?" Communications Officer Rulven said suddenly. "I'm receiving a transmission." Veltar turned sharply. "From whom?" "Unknown vessel. They're speaking Galactic Standard, but with an accent I don't recognize." "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static before a voice came through clearly. The accent was indeed strange, but the words were understandable. "Unknown vessel in distress, this is Captain Park Hyunwoo of the UES Busan, Terran Federation Navy. We have received your distress signal and are moving to assist. Please respond if you are able." The bridge fell silent. Veltar stared at the communications console as if it had spoken in an alien language. "Terran Federation?" Keelina whispered. "I've never heard of such a civilization." "Neither have I," Veltar admitted. "Are they in our database?" Science Officer Keelina quickly searched their records. "Nothing. No record of any species calling themselves Terrans or any Federation by that name." "Sir?" Communications Officer Rulven said urgently. "They're requesting a response." Veltar hesitated. Everything about this was wrong. An unknown civilization appearing in the Dead Zone, offering help when no one else would. It could be a trap. Pirates were known to use false distress signals to lure ships into ambush. But what choice did they have? "Open a channel," he ordered. "This is Captain Veltar of the Veldari research vessel Luminous Dawn," he said formally. We require assistance. Our primary systems have failed and we have limited life support remaining." The response came quickly. "Understood, Captain Veltar. We're approximately 6 hours out from your position. Can you maintain life support for that long? Engineer. Murdoch looked up from his console and nodded grimly. Affirmative, Veltar replied. We can maintain minimal life support for approximately 8 hours. Good. We'll be there in 6. Is there anything specific you need us to know about your ship or your situation? Veltar paused. Should he tell them about the artifact? About the energy drain that had crippled them? About the dangerous effects that had made this region forbidden to most ships? There is an anomaly in this region, he said carefully. It affects exotic matter systems. You should approach with caution. There was a brief pause before the human captain responded. Understood. We don't use exotic matter drives, so that shouldn't be a problem for us. We'll maintain communication until we reach you. Busan out. The channel closed, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Did he say they don't use exotic matter drives? Kylina asked in disbelief. That's impossible, Engineer Murdoch said from his station. Every spacefaring civilization uses exotic matter. How else would they achieve faster than light travel? Maybe they're more primitive than we thought, suggested Communications Officer Rulven. Veltar said nothing, but his mind was racing. If these Terrans didn't use exotic matter, how had they gotten here so quickly? This region was far from any major shipping lanes, deep in empty space between star systems. Even with the fastest exotic matter drives, it would take days to reach them from the nearest inhabited system. Captain, Kylina said suddenly, I'm detecting a ship approaching on long-range sensors. The Terrans? I think so. But sir, this reading can't be right. What do you mean? Kylina checked her instruments. Again, the ship is massive, much larger than anything we've seen before, and it's moving at... This can't be right. It's moving at significant sublight speed, but there are no exotic matter signatures. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. The energy signature is completely unfamiliar. It almost looks like primitive fusion reactions. Veltar stared at the sensor display. A massive ship, powered by fusion traveling between stars without exotic matter drives. It made no sense. Captain, Communications Officer Rulven announced. The vessel is hailing us again. Put them through. Captain Veltar, this is Captain Park. We have you on visual now. We're going to begin final approach. Our scanners show significant damage to your hull and life support systems. How many crew members do you have aboard? 12 survivors, Veltar replied. Understood. We're prepared to take all of you aboard if necessary. Our medical team is standing by. We'll be alongside in 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, Veltar stood at the main viewport watching the strangest ship he had ever seen approach his vessel. The human ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the luminous dawn. But where Veldari ships were elegant curves of crystal and flowing energy, this vessel was all sharp angles and rough metal. It looked like something built for war. The hull was covered in what appeared to be armor plating. Strange projections that might be weapons pointed in all directions. Instead of the smooth, organic lines that advanced civilizations preferred, the human ship looked like it had been assembled from metal blocks. It's so primitive, Kylina whispered beside him. But Veltar was beginning to wonder if primitive was the right word. The ship moved with purpose and precision. Its approach was perfect, professional. And despite its crude appearance, it had crossed impossible distances to reach them. Captain, Communications Officer Rulven called out. The human ship is requesting permission to dock. Granted, Veltar replied. The docking procedure was unlike anything the Veldari had experienced. Instead of the energy fields they were accustomed to, the human ship extended what appeared to be physical docking clamps. Metal arms reached out and gripped their ship with mechanical precision. Physical docking clamps? Engineer Murdoch said in amazement. I haven't seen those since I was a student studying ancient technology. Captain Veltar, came the human voice over the communication system. We're secure, requesting permission to board. Veltar took a deep breath. Permission granted. Me. Airlocks opened with a mechanical grinding sound that made the Veldari wince. They were used to silent energy barriers, not crude mechanical seals. But the seals held, and breathable atmosphere flowed between the ships. The first human to step aboard was clearly their leader. He was shorter than the Veldari, with dark hair and eyes, wearing what appeared to be a functional gray uniform. Behind him came three others, all wearing bulky suits that looked more like armor than environmental protection. "Captain Veltar," the human said, removing his helmet to reveal a friendly face. "I'm Captain Park Hyun-woo. These are my people, Chief Engineer Ko Jimin, Medical Officer Dr. Yoon Nara, and Security Chief Lieutenant Choi Dae-ho." Veltar was surprised by how normal they appeared. He had expected aliens, but these beings looked remarkably similar to several humanoid species he had encountered. The main difference was their equipment, which looked ancient by galactic standards. "Captain," Park Veltar replied. The human ship, called the U.S. Busan, was unlike anything Captain Veltar had ever seen in his long career with the Veldari Collective. As his crew prepared for evacuation, he found himself studying the strange vessel through the viewports with growing amazement. Where Veldari ships were works of art, flowing lines of crystal that caught and channeled exotic energy, the human ship looked like it had been built in a factory by workers who cared nothing for beauty. Its hull was flat gray, metal, broken by geometric shapes that served unknown purposes. Strange projections stuck out at odd angles. What appeared to be weapon turrets pointed in every direction like the spines of some ancient beast. "It looks like a flying fortress," Science Officer Kyle-Ina whispered beside him. "A very old fortress," added Engineer Murdoch. "Look at those fusion exhaust ports. I haven't seen fusion drives that primitive since I studied ancient history." But even as they criticized the ship's appearance, both Veldari officers watched with growing respect as the human crew worked. The evacuation was proceeding with military precision. Human crew members in bulky environmental suits moved through the luminous dawn, carrying injured Veldari and helping the walking wounded toward the docking tubes. The suits themselves were remarkable in their primitive efficiency. Where advanced civilizations used energy shields for environmental protection, the humans wore actual physical armor. Thick metal and ceramic plates covered their bodies. Their helmets were simple, transparent domes with mechanical air systems. Everything about them screamed of crude technology, yet they moved with the confidence of beings whose equipment would not fail them. "Captain Veltar," came Captain Park's voice over the communication system. "My medical officer needs to examine your crew members before we transfer them. Some of your injured may need special handling." Dr. Yoon Nara, the human medical officer, was already moving through the Veldari ship with her equipment. Her medical scanners looked ancient compared to Veldari biosensors, but she used them with obvious skill. More importantly, she seemed to understand Veldari physiology better than Veltar would have expected. "How do you know our medical requirements?" Veltar asked her directly. Dr. Yoon looked up from examining an injured crew member. "We studied your distress signal. Your ship's automated systems included basic biological data about your crew. We did research during our approach." "Research? In 6 hours? Human medical computers are very fast," she replied simply. "We've encountered many different species in our travels. Learning to treat alien physiology quickly is necessary for emergency medicine." Veltar was surprised. The humans spoke as if they routinely encountered other species, yet their names appeared in no galactic databases. Either they were lying, or they came from somewhere very far away. Engineer Ko Jimin was having a heated discussion with Murdoch about power systems. The human engineer had managed to restore partial life support using what he called jury-rigged bypass systems, but Murdoch was horrified by the crude methods involved. "You're using chemical batteries," Murdoch protested, "and physical cables. This is technology from the Stone Age." Ko Jimin smiled patiently. "It works, doesn't it?" "Well, yes, but when your exotic matter systems failed, what happened to your ship?" "Everything stopped working," Murdoch admitted reluctantly. "When our fusion reactors fail, we have backup chemical systems. When those fail, we have mechanical systems. When those fail, we have manual controls. Each system is independent of the others." Kojimin gestured to the cables he had run through, the ship's corridors. It's not elegant, but it keeps people alive. But it's so primitive. Primitive, Kojimin agreed, but reliable. Your beautiful energy systems failed you when you needed them most. Our ugly mechanical systems will keep working even if someone drops a bomb on them. Veltar found himself listening to this conversation with growing interest. The humans had a completely different philosophy about technology. Where advanced civilizations sought elegance and efficiency, humans seemed to value reliability and redundancy above all else. Lieutenant Choi Dae-ho, the human security chief, was coordinating the evacuation with military precision. His team moved through the ship, checking every compartment, ensuring no one was left behind. They carried what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons instead of elegant energy rifles, but they handled them with obvious competence. "Sir," one of the human soldiers reported to Choi, "we've cleared all sections. 12 Veldari crew members accounted for, all secured for transport." "Good. Medical status?" Dr. Yoon reports 3 critical, 5 wounded but stable, 4 uninjured. "Understood. Begin final evacuation." The transfer to the human ship was an experience that amazed the Veldari crew. Instead of energy transporters or matter conversion systems, the humans used actual physical movement through connecting tubes. Veldari crew members were placed on simple wheeled gurneys and pushed through airlocks by hand. Everything about it was crude, manual, inefficient. Everything about it worked perfectly. The interior of the human ship was as functional and unbeautiful as its exterior. The corridors were straight lines with right angles, lit by simple electric lights. The walls were bare metal with pipes and cables running along them in plain sight. Where Veldari ships hid their systems behind elegant panels, human ships seemed to put everything where it could be easily reached and repaired. Dr. Yoon led them to what she called the medical bay. It was a large room filled with simple beds and mechanical equipment. Everything was clean and functional, but it looked like a museum display of ancient medicine. "This is where you'll recover," Dr. Yoon explained to the injured Veldari. "I know. Our equipment looks primitive, but I promise you'll be well cared for." Veltar was placed in what the humans called a guest quarters. It was a small room with simple furniture and basic amenities. Everything worked manually. The lights had physical switches, the temperature control was a simple dial. Even the door opened and closed with mechanical handles. "It's so direct," Kylina said, looking around her own quarters. "No computer interfaces, no energy controls. Everything is mechanical." "I find it strangely comforting," admitted Engineer Murdoch. "If the power fails, I can still turn on the lights." They were given time to rest and recover before Captain Park called them to what he called the briefing room. It was a plain chamber with a large table and simple chairs. Captain Park sat at one end with his senior officers, while the Veldari crew gathered at the other. "First," Captain Park began, "let me officially welcome you aboard the UES Busan. You're safe here, and you'll remain our guests until we can get you home safely." "We're grateful for your assistance," Veltar replied formally. "But I must ask, who are you? Your people don't appear in any galactic databases." Captain Park exchanged glances with his officers. "That's because we're not from this part of the galaxy. The Terran Federation is based in what you probably call the Outer Rim. We've been exploring this region for several years, but this is our first contact with your particular civilization." "The Outer Rim?" Kylina said in surprise. "But that's considered empty space. No advanced civilizations are believed to exist there." "None are believed to exist there," Chief Engineer Ko corrected with a slight smile. "But we do exist. Humans have been spacefaring for about 200 years now. We've established colonies throughout our local region and have begun exploring further." 200 years? Murdoch said incredulously. "That's impossible. No species could develop star travel that quickly." "We had help," Dr. Yoon said quietly. "About 300 years ago, we discovered the wreckage of an alien ship on our homeworld. We learned much from studying it. This explained much to Veltar. The humans were a young species who had learned star travel from studying alien technology. That would explain their crude but functional approach. They had learned the basics, but hadn't had time to develop elegant solutions. "But why are you here?" Veltar asked. "This region is far from your territory and it's known to be dangerous." "We're explorers," Captain Park said simply. "It's what humans do. We explore, we discover, we learn. When we detected your distress signal, responding was automatic. Even though you risked your ship and crew, especially because we risked our ship and crew. Captain Veltar, humans have a saying, the only easy day was yesterday. We don't avoid danger. We prepare for it." Lieutenant Choi spoke up. "Sir, we have movement on long-range sensors. The hegemony ships are approaching faster than expected." Captain Park's expression became serious. "How long?" 90 minutes, sir." "Very well. Continue monitoring." Captain Park turned back to the Veldari. "I'm afraid we're going to have visitors soon. The hegemony ships you mentioned are approaching. They'll demand you turn us over to them," Veltar said grimly. "Along with all our research data. They've been trying to steal Veldari energy technology for decades. And if we refuse, they'll destroy both ships. The hegemony doesn't negotiate. With what they consider primitive species." Captain Park was quiet for a moment. "Captain Veltar, I need to know about this artifact that damaged your ship. What exactly are we dealing with?" Veltar hesitated, then decided these humans deserved the truth. "It's ancient, older than any known civilization. Our science team believed it was some kind of automated defense system left behind by a long-dead species. It drains exotic." The bridge of the UES Busan was nothing like the elegant command centers that Captain Veltar was accustomed to seeing. Instead of flowing curves and holographic displays, everything was angular metal and glowing screens. Physical switches and mechanical controls covered every surface. It looked like something built for war rather than exploration. Captain Park stood at the center of it all, calm and focused as his crew prepared for the impossible battle ahead. Around him, human officers worked at their stations with efficient movements, calling out reports in their strange accent. 3 hegemony heavy cruisers confirmed," reported the tactical officer. "Antimatter torpedoes, quantum shields, exotic matter drives. They outgun us at least 5-1. "Acknowledged," Captain Park replied calmly. "Distance?" 200,000 kilometers and closing. They're demanding we stand down and prepare for boarding. Open a channel." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead hegemony ship. Captain Thexmore, a tall reptilian being with cold eyes, stared out at them with obvious disdain. "Unknown primitive vessel," Thexmore spoke in perfect galactic standard. "You are interfering with hegemony military operations. Withdraw immediately, or face destruction." Captain Park stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "This is Captain Park Hyunwoo of the United Earth ship Busan. We are conducting a rescue operation for survivors in distress. We will not withdraw." Thexmore's eyes narrowed. "Earth? I have never heard of such a world. You will surrender the Veldari criminals and their stolen research data immediately." "Negative. These beings are under our protection. No one will be surrendered." "You dare refuse the hegemony?" Thexmore hissed. "Your primitive ship cannot stand against our weapons. Surrender now and you will be permitted to leave unharmed." Captain Park's expression didn't change. "Captain Thexmore, let me be very clear. We don't abandon people in distress, not for you, not for anyone. If you want the Veldari, you'll have to go through us. So be it. You have chosen death over wisdom." The channel closed. Almost immediately, the tactical officer called out a warning. "They're locking weapons on us, sir. Antimatter torpedoes armed and ready. All hands prepare for combat," Captain Park announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. All crew to battle stations." In the medical bay, Veltar and his crew listened to the sounds of the human ship preparing for war. Mechanical systems hummed to life. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as crew members ran to their positions. And somewhere deep in the ship, enormous weapon systems powered up with a rumble that could be felt through the deck plates. "They're really going to fight," Kylina whispered in amazement. Dr. Yoon moved among her patients, checking on the injured Veldari while her human medical staff prepared for casualties. "Don't worry," she said calmly. "Captain Park has never Lost a ship yet? How many battles has he fought? Veltar asked. This will be his 16th major engagement, Dr. Yoon replied matter-of-factly. Humans have fought many wars during our expansion into space. Pirates, hostile aliens, territorial disputes. Captain Park is considered one of our best combat commanders. 16 battles. Veltar was stunned. The Veldari had been a spacefaring civilization for thousands of years, but they avoided military conflict whenever possible. The idea of a captain fighting 16 major battles was almost unthinkable. On the bridge, the final preparations were complete. Captain Park studied the tactical display, watching the 3 hegemony ships arrange themselves in a standard attack formation. Sir, the tactical officer reported. Enemy ships are beginning their approach. They're maintaining formation, probably planning to overwhelm us with concentrated fire. Weapons status? All kinetic batteries online. Missiles armed and ready. Point defense systems active. Very good, Helm, take us toward the artifact. The navigation officer looked up in surprise. Sir, toward the artifact? You heard me. Plot a course directly for that ancient structure. Best possible speed. Aye, sir. Veltar, watching from the medical bay through internal monitors, couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans were flying directly toward the most dangerous object in this region of space. The hegemony ships opened fire as soon as the Busan began moving. Antimatter torpedoes streaked across space, followed by exotic energy beams that could tear through any known armor. The weapons looked like miniature stars as they raced toward the human ship. What happened next amazed everyone watching. Instead of trying to avoid the incoming fire, the Busan flew directly into it. Point defense weapons, primitive kinetic systems that fired actual projectiles, opened up in all directions. Thousands of small metal bullets filled space around the ship, detonating antimatter torpedoes early and scattering energy beams. Impossible, Murdoch breathed. They're using kinetic point defense against energy weapons. The human ship shuddered as several antimatter blasts got through, but its thick armor held. Emergency lights flickered as damage control teams rushed to repair what they could. Through it all, the ship continued flying straight toward the artifact. Sir, the tactical officer called out, we're taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Forward shields are down 30%. Acknowledged. Return fire. The human weapons were unlike anything the hegemony had faced before. Instead of elegant energy beams, the Busan fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Kinetic rounds that punched through quantum shields like they weren't there. The primitive weapons completely bypassed the hegemony's advanced defenses. One of the enemy cruisers staggered as a barrage of kinetic rounds tore through its hull. Exotic matter began leaking from its damaged drives, creating colorful clouds in space. Direct hit on enemy cruiser 2, the tactical officer reported with satisfaction. They're losing power. But the other 2 ships continued their attack. The Busan was taking terrible damage. Systems failing throughout the ship. In the medical bay, Dr. Yoon worked frantically as injured human crew members were brought in. Captain, Chief Engineer Ko's voice came over the communication system. Fusion Reactor 2 is offline. We're running on emergency power in sections 3 through 6. Can you keep us moving? For now, sir. But we can't take much more of this. The artifact was growing larger on the main screen. The ancient structure pulsed with dark energy every few seconds, sending waves of exotic matter disruption through the surrounding space. Sir, the navigation officer called out urgently. The hegemony ships are falling back. They're moving away from the artifact. Captain Park smiled grimly. As expected. Helm, bring us around behind the artifact. Use it as cover. The Busan swung around the massive ancient structure, putting it between themselves and the hegemony ships. Almost immediately, the enemy fire stopped. Why aren't they shooting? Kylina asked in the medical bay. They can't, Veltar realized. The artifact's energy pulses interfere with their targeting systems, and they can't get closer without risking their exotic matter drives. Captain Thexmore's voice came over the communication system full of rage. Clever humans, but you cannot hide behind that structure forever. Eventually you must come out, and when you do, we will be waiting. Maybe, Captain Park replied calmly. But I don't think so. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Captain Park turned to his tactical officer. Launch missiles. Target the artifact's power core. Sir? The officer looked confused. Target the artifact itself? You heard me. Full spread of kinetic penetrators. I want that thing cracked open like an egg. Veltar stared at the monitors in horror. They're going to attack the artifact? That's insane. No one knows what will happen if it's damaged. But the humans were already firing. Dozens of missiles streaked away from the Busan, each one carrying a dense kinetic warhead designed to punch through the heaviest armor. The weapons struck the ancient structure in a series of brilliant explosions. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the artifact began to pulse faster, its dark energy emissions growing stronger. The hegemony ships, caught in the expanding field of exotic matter disruption, began to lose power. Sir, came a panicked voice from one of the enemy vessels. Our exotic matter containment is failing. We're losing all power. Withdraw, Captain Thexmore ordered. All ships, emergency retreat. But it was too late. The artifact's death throes sent waves of disruptive energy throughout the region. The hegemony ships, completely dependent on exotic matter systems, were left powerless and drifting. The Busan, running on simple fusion reactors and chemical batteries, continued to function normally. Tactical, Captain Park ordered. Target the disabled hegemony ships. Prepare to fire. Wait. Captain Thexmore's voice came over the communication system, now filled with desperation instead of arrogance. We surrender. Don't fire on helpless ships. Captain Park was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke calmly into his communicator. Captain Thexmore, you came here to take prisoners and steal research data. You threatened to destroy my ship for trying to rescue people in distress. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't blow you out of space right now. There was a long pause before Thexmore replied. Because you're better than that. You saved the Veldari because it was the right thing to do. Destroying helpless ships would make you no better than us. Captain Park nodded slowly. You're right. Very well. You and your ships are free. The journey to Veldari space would take 8 days at the Busan's maximum speed. For Captain Veltar and his crew, those 8 days became an education in human nature that challenged everything they thought they knew about civilization and technology. The damage from the battle with the hegemony ships was severe. Hull breaches had been sealed with emergency patches, but entire sections of the ship remained without power. 3 human crew members had been killed, and 12 more were seriously injured. Yet the humans went about their repairs with calm efficiency, as if fighting impossible battles was simply part of their normal routine. How can you be so calm about this? Kylina asked Chief Engineer Ko, as she watched him direct repair teams. Your ship is badly damaged, people died. Ko paused in his work, his face serious. Because getting upset won't bring them back or fix the damage. We mourn our dead properly, we take care of the wounded, and we fix what's broken. That's how humans deal with loss. The Veldari science officer watched as human engineers worked alongside their automated systems to restore power to damaged sections. What amazed her was how much of the work was done by hand, using simple tools and manual labor. Where her people would have relied entirely on computer-controlled repair systems, the humans seemed to prefer doing things themselves. Why don't you use more automation, she asked. Because machines break, Ko replied, carefully welding a damaged power conduit. When your computer-controlled systems fail, you're helpless. When our machines fail, we fix them ourselves. But it's so much slower. Slower, yes, but more reliable in the long run. We build things to last, and we build them so they can be repaired by regular people with basic tools. In the medical bay, Dr. Yoon was treating both human and Veldari patients, with equal care. Her medical techniques fascinated the Veldari crew. Where their medicine relied on sophisticated energy treatments and automated diagnostic systems, human medicine seemed focused on keeping patients alive and fighting through any condition. Your approach is so aggressive, observed Corvell, the Veldari medic, as he watched Dr. Yoon perform surgery on a human crew member with severe burns. We call it emergency medicine, Dr. Yoon replied, not looking up from her work. The goal isn't perfect treatment, it's keeping people alive until they can receive perfect treatment. But surely your automated medical systems could do this more efficiently. Dr. Yoon smiled slightly. What happens when the power fails? Or when your ship is damaged and the medical computers are offline? Our medics are trained to treat injuries with basic tools if necessary. We can perform surgery with manual instruments, sterilize equipment with heat and chemicals, and keep people alive using techniques that don't require any technology at all. The concept was revolutionary to Corvell. Veldari medicine was completely dependent on sophisticated equipment. If their medical systems failed, they were helpless. The humans had built redundancy into their very training. Captain Veltar spent much of his time on the bridge, observing how the humans operated their ship. Captain Park had invited him to watch, saying that understanding each other was important for future relations between their species. The human bridge was a study in controlled chaos. Unlike the serene quiet of Veldari command centers, the humans constantly communicated with each other, calling out status reports, asking questions, and sharing information. Everyone seemed to know what everyone else was doing. "It's so noisy," Veltar commented. "Communication is survival," Captain Park explained. "In combat, in emergencies, in any crisis situation, information has to flow freely and quickly. We train our crews to share everything relevant immediately. But don't you have computer systems to handle information distribution?" "We do. But computers can be destroyed or damaged. Human voices work even when nothing else does." Veltar watched as the bridge crew performed routine maintenance checks. Everything was done manually, with crew members physically inspecting systems and reporting their findings verbally. It seemed incredibly primitive compared to automated monitoring systems. "Captain," the tactical officer reported, "I'm showing a slight misalignment in kinetic battery number 3. Should I run diagnostics?" "Negative," Captain Park replied. "Send a tech team to physically inspect it. I want eyes and hands on the problem." "Aye, sir. Why not use your computer?" "Diagnostics?" Veltar asked. "Because computers can lie," Captain Park said simply. "They can show you what they think is happening, but sometimes that's wrong. A human technician can see things computers miss, feel vibrations that sensors don't detect, smell problems that diagnostics overlook." This was a completely different philosophy from anything Veltar had encountered. The humans didn't trust their technology completely. They used it, but they always maintained the ability to function without it. Engineer Murdoch was having daily discussions with Chief Engineer Ko about human ship design. The conversations often became heated as the two engineers argued about the merits of different approaches. "Your redundancy systems are inefficient," Murdoch complained. "You have backup systems for backup systems. It wastes space and energy." "It keeps us alive," Ko replied patiently. "When our primary fusion reactor failed during the battle, we switched to the secondary reactor. When that was damaged, we went to emergency power. When the emergency batteries started running low, we had manual hand cranks to operate essential systems." "Hand cranks? That's ancient technology." "Ancient, but reliable. I can operate our life support systems by hand if necessary. Can you do the same with your exotic matter systems?" Murdoch was quiet for a moment. "No," he admitted. "If our primary systems fail, everything fails." "Exactly. We build things ugly and inefficient because ugly and inefficient keeps working when beautiful and elegant fails." The conversation that affected Veltar most deeply came during his second dinner with Captain Park. The human captain had invited him to share meals, saying it was important for leaders to understand each other. "Captain Park," Veltar said carefully, "I must ask you something that has been troubling me. Why did you really come to help us? We're complete strangers from a species you'd never encountered before." Captain Park was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "Captain Veltar, let me ask you something. How many distress calls has your civilization answered in the last year?" We don't typically respond to distress calls from other species." "Why not?" Because it's not our responsibility. Other species have their own rescue services, their own governments. We focus on our own people." Captain Park nodded. "That's a reasonable approach. Very logical. but humans think differently. We believe that any thinking being in danger is our responsibility if we're able to help. Even if it's dangerous? Especially if it's dangerous. That usually means no one else is willing or able to help. But why? What do you gain from saving? Strangers, Captain Park smiled. We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. Captain Veltar, humans have a saying. There, but for the grace of God, go I. It means that we could easily be the ones in trouble, needing help from strangers. How can we expect others to help us if we won't help them? This philosophy was alien to Veltar, but he was beginning to understand its power. The humans had built their entire civilization around the idea of helping others, even at personal cost. It made them seem primitive to more advanced species, but it also made them incredibly strong. On the 5th day of the journey, the ship's alarm system activated. Veltar rushed to the bridge to find the crew preparing for another crisis. What's happening? He asked Captain Park. Long-range sensors are picking up a ship in distress, Captain Park replied. It's a civilian transport, Galaxian Registry. They're reporting engine failure and requesting assistance. The Galaxians? Veltar was surprised. They're a member species of the hegemony. After what happened, they might be suspicious of us, Captain Park agreed. But they're still people in trouble. Sir, the navigation officer reported. Responding to their distress, call would add 2 days to our journey, and we're still making repairs from the last battle. Captain Park didn't hesitate. Set course for the Galaxian ship. We're going to help them. Veltar stared at him. Even though they're part of the hegemony? Even though it means delaying our arrival at my home? Captain Veltar, we don't abandon people in distress, ever. It doesn't matter who they are or what their government did to us. The rescue of the Galaxian transport was routine compared to the battle with the hegemony, but it demonstrated the same human principles. The Busan's engineering teams worked for 18 hours straight to repair the transport's damaged engines, using their own spare parts and materials. The Galaxian captain, a insectoid being named Crixnall, was initially suspicious and frightened. His people had been told that humans were dangerous primitives who attacked without provocation. Finding them helpful and generous instead left him confused and grateful. Why are you helping us? Crixnall asked Captain Park. Your species and mine are not allies. Your species and mine have never met before, Captain Park corrected. As far as I'm concerned, you're just people who need help. But the Hegemony Command said you were hostile. The Hegemony Command attacked us while we were rescuing people. We defended ourselves. That doesn't make us enemies of the Galaxian people. When the repairs were, the Veldari homeworld of Luminara appeared on the main screen like a jewel against the darkness of space. Its crystal cities caught and reflected starlight, creating patterns of beauty that had inspired poets for thousands of years. But as captain, Veltar watched his home grow larger. He found himself seeing it differently than before. The orbital defense platforms that surrounded Luminara were elegant works of art, flowing curves of exotic matter that could destroy any threat with beams of pure energy. They were beautiful, sophisticated, and completely dependent on technology that could be disrupted by a simple electromagnetic pulse. Impressive, Captain Park said, standing beside Veltar on the bridge. Your people build beautiful things. Yes, Veltar replied thoughtfully. But beautiful things are often fragile. The past 8 days had changed Captain Veltar in ways he was still trying to understand. Living among the humans, watching how they worked and thought and solved problems, had shown him a completely different way of looking at the universe. The humans built things that were ugly but reliable, used crude methods that actually worked better than elegant ones, and valued helping others above their own safety. Most importantly, they had kept their promises. Despite the danger, despite the damage to their own ship, despite opportunities to abandon their guests, the humans had delivered the Veldari crew safely home. Captain Veltar, the communications officer called out, we're being hailed by Luminara Control. Put them through, The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Admiral Zil Andra, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Veldari Collective. Her expression was a mixture of relief and confusion. "Captain Veltar," she said formally. "We received word of your rescue from hegemony sources. We are pleased to see you safe, but we must know. Who are these humans who claim to have saved you?" "Admiral," Veltar replied. "I request permission to bring my rescuers to the surface. There is much we need to discuss." "Permission granted. But Captain, the Collective Council wants a full briefing immediately upon your arrival." "Understood, Admiral." The channel closed and Captain Park turned to Veltar with a slight smile. "They seem suspicious. They have good reason to be. Humans don't exist in our databases. An unknown species appearing from nowhere claiming to have defeated hegemony warships tends to make governments nervous. Will there be problems?" Veltar considered this carefully. "Possibly, but I think once they understand what humans really are, those problems will disappear." The landing at Luminara's main spaceport was unlike anything the humans had experienced. Instead of crude mechanical systems, the Veldari used exotic matter fields to guide ships to the surface. The Busan, with its primitive fusion drives and kinetic thrusters, required special accommodation. "It's like they're trying to land a steam engine at a hovercar facility," Chief Engineer Ko commented as he watched Veldari technicians struggle to adapt their systems for human technology. The humans who accompanied Captain Park to the surface were the same ones who had rescued the Veldari crew: Ko Jimin, Dr. Yoon Nara, and Lieutenant Choi Dae-ho. They wore their dress uniforms, simple gray outfits that looked primitive compared to the flowing robes of Veldari officials. The Collective Council met in a chamber that was itself a work of art. Walls of living crystal pulsed with soft light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with exotic energy. 12 Veldari counselors sat in a circle, their tall forms elegant and imposing. Chairman Kolveth spoke first, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of tradition. "Captain Park, of the humans, we are grateful for your assistance to our people, but we must understand who are you and what do you want from us." Captain Park stood in the center of the circle, looking small and primitive compared to the sophisticated Veldari around him, but his voice was steady and clear. "Honored counselors, we want nothing from you except perhaps friendship and understanding. We helped your people because it was the right thing to do. You ask for nothing in return?" Counselor Murthis sounded skeptical. "No technology transfer, no trade agreements, no territorial concessions?" "Nothing," Captain Park confirmed. "Helping people in distress is not something humans do for profit." Counselor Vextar leaned forward. "Captain Veltar has made some remarkable claims about human capabilities. He says you defeated 3 hegemony cruisers with a single ship. This seems unlikely." Captain Veltar stood up. "Counselors, with your permission, I would like to share what I learned during my time with the humans." For the next hour, Veltar told the story of his rescue. He described the human ship with its crude but reliable technology, the battle with the hegemony that the humans had won through clever tactics and stubborn determination, and most importantly, the human philosophy of helping others regardless of personal cost. "They rescued a Calaxian transport on the way here," Veltar concluded. "Even though the Calaxians are part of the hegemony, even though it delayed our return home, they helped because people needed help." The council was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Chairman Kolveth spoke. "These are impressive claims, Captain Veltar. But surely you exaggerate. No species could be so altruistic." Chief Engineer Ko stepped forward. "Counselors, if I may." "Speak." "You think we're primitive because we use fusion reactors instead of exotic matter, because we build with metal instead of energy, because we solve problems with simple tools instead of sophisticated computers. But consider this. When your exotic matter systems failed, you were helpless. When our fusion reactors failed, we switched to backup systems. When those failed, we used chemical batteries. When those failed, we had manual controls." Ko gestured to the crystal walls around them. "Your chamber is beautiful, but what happens if the power fails? Our ships are ugly, but they keep working when everything else stops." Dr. Yoon added her own perspective. We've studied your medical techniques during our journey. They're elegant and effective when everything works perfectly. But what happens when you don't have access to your automated systems? We train our medics to save lives with basic tools, to perform surgery manually, to keep people alive under any conditions. Counselor Zexandra looked interested despite herself. You're saying that primitive technology is actually superior? Not superior, Captain Park corrected. Different. We build things to survive when sophisticated systems fail. We train people to function without computer assistance. We believe in redundancy, backup systems, and human capability. But why? Chairman Kolveth asked. Why choose crude methods when elegant ones are available? Captain Park was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because elegant systems fail at the worst possible moments. When your ship is damaged, when you're under attack, when people are dying. That's when you need technology that absolutely will not quit. Lieutenant Choi spoke up. Counselors, during our battle with the hegemony, our main weapons were destroyed, our shields failed, and half our ship lost power. But we kept fighting because we had backup weapons, backup power, backup everything. We planned for things to go wrong. The implications of this philosophy were staggering to the Veldari counselors. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that their sophisticated technology would never fail. The humans had built their civilization on the assumption that everything would eventually fail, and they needed to be ready for it. There's something else, Captain Veltar said. The humans don't just help their own people. They help anyone who needs help, enemy or ally, known or unknown. They answered our distress call because people were in danger. Surely not always. Counselor Murthis protested. No species could maintain such a policy. Captain Park nodded to Lieutenant Choi, who activated a small device. A holographic display appeared showing a star chart. In the past year, Choi reported, Terran Federation ships have responded to 47 distress calls from non-human vessels, 17 different species, including 3 calls from ships belonging to governments that had declared war on us. You helped your enemies? Chairman Kolveth asked in amazement. We helped people in distress, Captain Park corrected. Politics doesn't matter when lives are at stake. The council session continued for hours, with the humans answering questions about their technology, their philosophy, and their intentions. Gradually, the Veldari counselors began to understand that they were dealing with something unprecedented, a spacefaring civilization that valued helping others above their own interests. Finally, Chairman Kolveth called for a recess. The counselors withdrew to deliberate while the humans were shown to comfortable quarters. What do you think they'll decide? Dr. Yoon asked Captain Veltar as they waited. I think, Veltar said slowly, that they're scared. Of us? Of what you represent. For thousands of years, the Veldari have believed that our way was the only way. That elegant technology and sophisticated systems were the marks of true civilization. You've shown us that there's another path. That evening, the collective council reconvened. Chairman Kolveth's expression was serious but not hostile. Captain Park, he began, the collective council has discussed your unique civilization at length. We have decided to formally recognize the Terran Federation and establish diplomatic relations. We're honored, Captain Park replied. More than that, Chairman Kolveth continued, we want to learn from you. Captai,